Welcome to National Book Festival Presents. I'm Rob Casper, and I'm delighted to introduce you to our event celebrating National Poetry Month. National Book Festival Presents aims to bring the popular annual festival from the Library of Congress to audiences year-round with the most important writers and books of our moment. And I can't imagine a better pair of poets to highlight than Victoria Chang and Brenda Shaughnessy. Chang's fifth book of poetry, Obit, won the 2021 Anisfield Wolf Book Award for Poetry and was named a New York Times Notable Book and a Time Best Book of 2020. Brenda Shaughnessy is the author of 5 poetry collections, most recently The Octopus Museum, which was a New York Times Notable Book in 2019 and named a Best Book of the Year by Publishers Weekly and Library Journal. Chang joins us from Los Angeles, where she is program chair of Antioch's low residency MFA program, while Shaughnessy, professor of English and creative writing at Rutgers University in Newark, joins us from the other side of the country in Verona, New Jersey. Here to talk about both of these remarkable books is Ann Holmes, program specialist in the library's Literary Initiatives Office. Ann, take it away.
Thanks, Rob, for that introduction, and welcome, Victoria and Brenda. It's so nice to be here with you during National Poetry Month. Thanks to you both so much for joining.
It's nice to be here.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
Thanks again. To start things off, I'm hoping we could hear a couple poems from your newest books, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So, Victoria, let's begin with you, and then Brenda will follow.
Okay. I'll just read 2 poems from my book, Obit. This one is called My Mother's Teeth. My mother's teeth died twice, once in 1965, all pulled out from gum disease. Once again on August 3rd, 2015. The fake teeth sit in a box in the garage. When she died, I touched them, smelled them, thought I heard a whimper. I shoved the teeth into my mouth, but having 2 sets of teeth only made me hungrier. When my mother died, I saw myself in the mirror, her words around my mouth like powder from a donut. Her last words were in English. She asked for a Sprite. I wonder whether her last thought was in Chinese. I wonder what her last thought was. I used to think that a dead person's words die with them. Now I know that they scatter, looking for meaning to attach to, like a scent. My mother used to collect orange blossoms in a small, shallow bowl. I passed the tree each spring. I always knew that grief was something I could smell, but I didn't know that it's not actually a noun, but a verb, that it moves. And this one is called The Clock. The clock died on June 24th, 2009, and it was untimely. How many times my father has failed the clock test. Once I heard a scientist with Alzheimer's on the radio trying to figure out why he could no longer draw a clock. It had to do with the superposition of 3 types. The hours represented by 1 to 12, the minutes where 1 no longer represents 1, but 5, and a 2 now represents 10, then the second hand that measures 1 to 60. I sat at the stoplight and thought of the clock, its perfect circle, and its superpositions, all the layers of complication on a plane of thought. Yet the healthy read the clock in one single instant, without a second thought. I think about my father and his lack of first thoughts, how every thought is a second or third or fourth thought, unable to locate the first, most important thought. I wonder about the man on the radio and how far his brain has degenerated since. Marvel at how far our brains allow language to wander without looking back, but knowing where the pier is. If you unfold an origami swan and flatten the paper, is the paper sad because it has seen the shape of the swan? Or does it aspire toward flatness, a life without creases? My father is the paper. He remembers the swan, but can't name it. He no longer knows the paper swan represents an animal swan. His brain is the water the animal swan once swam in, holds everything. But when thawed, all the fish disappear. Most of the words we say have something to do with fish, and when they're gone, they're gone.
Wow, thank you. Brenda, do you mind reading a few from the Octopus Museum?
Sure. I'm going to read two poems. The first one is called Identity and Community. There is no I in C. I don't want to be surrounded by people, or even one person, but I don't want to always be alone. The answer is to become my own pet, hungry for plenty in a plentiful place. There is no true solitude, only. At Seaside, I have that familiar sense of being left out. Too far to glean the secret. How go in? What an inhuman surface the sea has, always open. I'm too afraid to go in. I give no yes. Full of shame, but refuse to litter ever. I pick myself up. Wind has power. Sun has power. What is power's source? There's no privacy outside. We've invaded it. There's no life outside empire. All paradise is performance for people who pay. Perhaps I'm an invader and feel I haven't paid. What a waste to have lost everything in mind. Watching three mom-like women try to go in, I'm green. I want to join them. But they're not my women. I join them, apologizing. They splash away from me. They're their pod. People are alien. I'm an unknown story, erasing myself with seawater. There goes my honey and fog, my shoulders and legs. What could be queerer than this queer tug lust for what already is, who already am, but other of it? Happens? That kind of desire anymore? Oh, I am that queer thing, pulling and greener than the blue sea. I'm new with envy, beauty washing over itself, no reflection, no claim, nothing to see. If there's anything bluer than the ocean, it's its greenness, its turquoise blood mixing me. I was a woman alone in the sea. Don't tell anybody, I tell myself. Don't try to remember this. Don't document it. Try to remember to write down, not to document it. And this is Our Family on the Run. Our Family on the Run. Everything organized around Cal in his wheelchair. He can't walk and I can't carry him far. We'd have the wheelchair van as long as we could find gas. Simone in the side seat, Craig and me in the front. Maybe spray paint a super soaker metallic silver to look like a real weapon? Load the car up with cans of enteral food for Cal's G-tube. Maybe a 6-week supply, plus a go backpack full of cans, extensions, spare Mickey button. 3 days of food for the rest of us. We'll find water. Sleeping in the front seats, taking turns on watch. Simone curled up next to the gas cam and Ziploc of batteries, cords, chargers with her one stuffed animal we have to worry about something happening to, her only toy. And what if we lose the car? Running on some side road to Pennsylvania, airport, Atlantic, evacuation center, relocation camp, as yet unknown. Trying to buy a blow-up raft for 4 people. Can't take the wheelchair. Our stack of euros to buy 4 plane tickets. Can't take the wheelchair. On foot, trying to get to a friend's country home. Promise of a bedroom. No way to call the friend for directions. A compass one of the kids got at a birthday party wound up under a car seat. Lucky too, Simone can walk. Though she gets tired and I'd want to hoist her on my back if I didn't have to save my energy to carry Cal when Craig's legs give way, his back out. Cal, 4'6" and 60 pounds of tween, who must be carried if we somehow lose that wheelchair, or the wheelchair breaks, or is stolen, or gets a flat tire, or rusts. It's red, a color Cal chose by smiling when we said red in a list of colors. No expression when we said blue, green, black, purple, or pink. Big smile when we said red. He had his choice and he made it. How strange that the color of his wheelchair ever mattered enough for anyone to offer him that handful of options. Simone is hungry. I give her a Cliff Bar, that 24 pack I bought for rush mornings, and she drops half of it on the dirt road, which is covered in what? Bone dust or atomized drywall? She grabs what she dropped and stuffs it into her mouth before I can stop her. Why would I stop her? The side of the road is the well-known gutter of desperation always included in stories about wars where many people have to move on foot to the next terrible place. No matter what the emergency, whenever people are forced to flee, you find piece by piece how their understanding of their situation changed. If you read the stories, you're supposed to find abandoned photo albums, suitcases, babies, the useless things cut out by survival's swift knife. Dead weight, long gone. You never find food, bottled water, working flashlights, live batteries, shortwave radios. It's true, what all those stories said, it turns out. Eventually out of water and arms shredded, I carry Cal, Craig carries me, and Simone carries us all. Almost 7 years old, she is so strong and has some Cliff Bars stuffed in a bag. The notebook with all her information is long lost. She knows where she's going. How does she know that? She runs ahead and carries us, her heart pounding and breaking with the weight and strain of all of us in there.
Wow. Thank you both for that wonderful reading. It's always nice, I think, to begin a poetry event with poetry. And I'm just so thankful for you both and for the poems that you chose. Both of these collections deal with loss so powerfully. In reading Obit and the Octopus Museum and hearing you read just now, the word accumulation keeps cropping up for me. And I'm wondering how you both would describe this work in these poems of accumulating loss.
I'd love to hear what you have to say, Victoria, because I love the way you chose two poems that were about two different parents. And it seems like that's kind of a lot to, I don't like the word juggle, but a lot to balance. I'd love to hear what you have to say on that question.
The thing that I think about life as I get older and older is that it seems to be a series of fragmentary problems that are unsolvable. and for my experience with my parents and their and sort of grieving them in different ways is that it felt very fragmentary. So an elegy, maybe a traditional sort of uh, contained elegy wasn't the right form for my own experiences. And given how long my mother was ill for and all the small little deaths. And so that kind of fragmentary piling up and recurring, it just felt very much so parallel with my own experiences of life as an adult, constant. It just feels like there are always things being stacked in a monstrosity of a room of things being thrown and piled on top of each other like Lego pieces that just keep filling the room. That's kind of what my life feels like. And so I think for the poems to mimic that felt right in retrospect. And I very much so heard that in Brenda's poems too when you were reading. It's just this kind of piling and then turning and then repiling and re-experiencing and then how things sort of morph and change. And that was, I feel like that's my experience as an adult.
I feel like I have chills because that is so spot on. This amazing image that you had about the Lego pieces piling up. I just feel like that's a nightmare, the idea of the room filling up with Lego pieces. And I think the word earlier was used, accumulation. And it's funny, I think that for me, the word fragment, sort of multiplicity of fragments actually works better because there's this idea that it's supposed to accumulate to some meaningful whole, right? Our lives, our deaths, like sort of the day is supposed to accumulate to some kind of, there are all these little pieces, but it eventually all turned out to be one whole full day or one whole full life. And it just never it's just not that. It's just a bunch of pieces that kind of just keep falling out. And we're trying to make meaning out of those as best we can. I mean, poetry seems uniquely suited for that
Mhm.
purpose, to try to make meaning out of these fragments and bits and pieces. We
Mhm.
in our house, we call them odds and bods, those little things that have no place. They don't have a drawer. They don't, you know, where to put them. They're just little doodads or just things. You know, we're trying to make things like that make meaning in poetry.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I mean, I like that odds and bods you said, or
I don't know.
I love it. They're like little body parts, and to me, my whole life is odds and bods. Like I know of nothing else. You know, there's nothing whole to me. And I think that is an interesting thing you say about we're supposed to kind of this idealized notion that we're supposed to make something of our lives that is somehow cohesive. That to me is just not at all my own experience of life. And I think once I sort of accepted that there's nothing to change, there's nothing to fix, that it would just my life would just be odds and bads, I guess, was a kind of stunning moment of realization and acknowledgement. And I think that was helpful to me, kind of psychologically, to get through some of the more difficult aspects of life.
Yeah. It does seem like there's a pretty constant version of this always. Like we're always cleaning up after people. But also I'm thinking about like, you know, your folks, especially your dad, like the way that I'm sure there was a kind of moving of, there was a condensation of stuff, right? There was boxes that had to be thrown away or moved or put in storage. And this stuff happens all the time with aging, with parents, with our own moves and our own changing, you know, our own different phases of life. But it's like this constant moving of stuff and
Mhm.
negotiation of like physical reminders that we exist in these ways. And for me, I kind of, I really hate it. I really want to escape the sort of, I do want to escape the sense of like encroaching, crashing boxes of things and storage spaces. Like a part of me just kind of wants the music. I just want the music. I want the poetry in my ears. I don't necessarily want the like, I don't know, all of the pieces.
Mhm.
I think that making art does seem to be this kind of way out of this incessant, these incessant, bins of fragments raining down on us all the time.
Right,
But
right.
meaninglessly in a way, like each of the things matters. It's like, oh, this is so and so's little trophy or whatever. They have meaning, these little fragments, but not really. Like,
Not really. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's true. I mean, I think it's true with children as well. And I know we both have them, and I know that you've got two, and I've got two, and it's constantly reshaping their things as well. So it's cleaning out of their items and they things that seem so important to them at a moment, and the very next year doesn't seem important at all, including us as people. Some we used to be so important, and then suddenly we're not important. So even people are fragmented in terms of the reception and meaning in other people's lives. And there's a constant, like you're saying, kind of a, a discarding and a sort of entering and a refragmenting. And it just I think that that is our existence with children, with parents, with friends. Things are always changing. And then with technology, it's like the fragmentary nature of how we receive information now is also very much so a part of a pixelated existence, is kind of how I think of our whole existence now. So maybe poetry is just mimicking that pixelated experience.
but I don't like it. I don't want a
I,
pixelated existence. I don't. I mean, that's a great term. It's a great term, but I don't like it. Do you?
No, but sometimes I think about it's like, well, do I like life? I mean, is life something that I enjoy? And I think to myself, not really. And it's not
That's
a
deep.
sad thing, but I don't particularly enjoy um like one's existence is not that enjoyable most of the time. And so I think I'm okay. I guess I'm okay with it, but I'm not sure how to. I feel like too there's to some extent you have to ask oneself, are you an anachronism to the time period? And And I think it's particularly a pixelated experience now, and with the rapidity of like there's a motion to our existence that just didn't exist before. And all the things we talked about before, like parents and children, it's like there's already a lot of motion because you're helping people grow and die, and there's just movement all the time. Ourselves aging and growing and changing and learning, etc., making mistakes, all those kinds of things. But then you add in all of the motion around us, with all of the tumult, in terms of politics, all the racism, all the misogyny, all the violence that's occurring on a daily basis, the environmental degradation, which you write a lot about in your book as well. So there's just a lot of, I feel like it's in flux. And I'd love to go back and ask someone from like the 1919 or something, like, did you feel this way too? And I imagine they did, because it seems like human existence has always been in flux, which we're only alive for such a short time period. And so I imagine we all kind of feel kind of pixelated. Maybe they didn't have that same word though in 1919.
I mean, I think about koans, and I think those must have come about as a way to sort of address the, sort of irreducible paradox of like, existence means nothing, and also it's all we have. So that sort of a form that came to be. And I also think of Emily Dickinson. It's like, well, surely that's a pixelated, that's the fragmented, multiplicitous kind of consciousness that she's working with, because you can see it.
You can see it and feel it. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I love how you're both, talking about fragmentation and pixelation and containment. And you're actually leading me right into my next question, which is about form. And so much of the meat of your books seems to be in their forms and in their formal inventiveness. And I am so interested to hear you both talk about how you employed different types of forms in your books, and forms that seem distinct too from your previous work. Can you both talk a little bit about the forms in your books?
It's really funny that you said that, because I feel like Victoria and I were going to like roll down the hill of like cosmic foreverness, like talking about fragmentation and everything. It just seemed like it could go on forever. And I'm like, of course, you bring us back with this question about form to sort of get us back on.
I mean, I would love for this to go on forever, but that's, it's just not possible, sadly.
It's important. Yeah. To bring us back to some kind of form, form, even as a subject, to talk about form, to get us back to a reasonable shape. I think that, I don't know, I really love, and I know that the strangeness of talking about a commonality of sort of square shapes, like that we both have this sort of square shaped commonality in these particular works. I really saw, I really moved towards prose poems with this book, because it's a museum. I wanted them to have like a kind of framing, like a kind of like, the way a stereotypical picture that you look at on the wall of a museum. Like I kind of wanted it to be, to look like an exhibit shaped kind of thing. It was sort of a place to start.
Wow. That's really interesting. Yeah, I noticed the prose kind of form in your book too. And I just remember reading your book and just constantly thinking to myself, what a good writer you are. I don't mean to add that as flattery, but you can cut it out if you want to. But I really remember vividly thinking, wow, Brenda Shaughnessy is very talented and really good writer, and is able to change kind of the syntax of the writing and the diction in the writing, but still maintain your distinct voice, which is it's just very sonic. And I really always appreciate that element of your work. I was doing a reading with Ed Hirsch and Vijay Seshadri maybe yesterday, and Vijay said something, and I don't actually have the quote, but he paraphrased it, and that Robert Creeley said, "Strong feelings require strong containers." And that's sort of just stuck in my head all day. And I went hunting for the quote, but I couldn't find it. But I think there's an essay on containers that I need to go find. And I think that for me, Terrence Hayes also said for him, form is like a bird flying around in a cage. And that also really resonates with me, is that sometimes the feelings and the emotions are so harried and so fragmented that perhaps putting some, guardrails like in bowling, when children or me are bowling, like you need those guardrails to not gutter every single roll. I think that can be incredibly amazing in terms of freeing and actually exploding the imagination. And so I think always very attracted to some kind of container, no matter how loose that container might be. And it just helps. And I'm kind of all over the place and constantly the brain is just not contained for me. And so I think for me, it's helpful to have those kinds of containers to kind of keep me somewhat in some sort of space that is at least partially visible to other people, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that in that last poem that you read, the idea of like the father's brain sort of having these, how did you describe it? How would you describe it? You said it and I noted it, but I don't have a pen, so I didn't write it down. But there was a moment where you were talking about the brain and it felt to me like it had that kind of fragmentary, ineffable kind of non-substance.
Mm-hmm. Maybe when I was talking about the paper and
yes,
his brain is the water the animals once swam in. Yeah, the origami paper. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like we're basically imagining the forms our consciousnesses take, and so there's to have an obituary form, like that's a powerful, because that's a really powerful sort of shape, and it's a what do you call it? It's a known experience. We know what to look for. We know what the column width is. We know what an obituary experience is. And so to be able to put those things that are completely they're uncontainable, but they're also like almost unthinkable into that form, which is so sort of overdetermined to be a known experience. I think that's amazing. And I for some reason I keep thinking about my kid, Cal, who he's in his wheelchair, we're pushing him along. And whenever we're in like a hallway, his arms always go out and it always feels like he's trying to mess with us. Like you're trying to like get your arms in the way, but actually he's trying to figure out where the edges are. He's like, I know I'm going through a space and I don't know where the edges are. He's trying to like kind of locate where he is in that space so that he knows if it's like here or if it's farther away. And he's basically trying to suss it out. And his brain is doing that to try to figure out like where he is in any given space, because the boundaries are what are going to define his experience. He can relax if he knows it's like, I'm not going to hit a wall.
That's really beautiful.
So I think that maybe these two examples that you brought up with the bird in the cage and the powerful feelings meeting the powerful form. Of course, there's always the idea, form follows function. Like what does the poem need to do, and how does the form help it do that?
Right.
And I think that that's sort of embedded in us as poets. That's almost like we know that, so we write toward that always.
Yeah. And what I think how you described your son too, kind of feeling out while you're pushing the wheelchair is a very apt metaphor for writing. One sits and says, I'm going to now put my arms out. It happens almost simultaneously and oftentimes with some mysterious hands pushing you along. It's all sort of simultaneously, and what came first or second, it's hard to articulate. And so I think that's very much so what it feels like to write. And I find it so moving, that image of your son reaching for the walls. It's a very also figurative for existentialism, like what is, I mean, your son is a philosopher, where am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? Who is behind me? It's a really beautiful image. And you probably have so many daily observations like that are just, that kind of take your breath away.
I know, but what happens to you, it all seems so boring.
I know.
I can present the idea to you, and then you take it to another level, because I hadn't thought even of the idea of the person who's going through the space isn't the person who's steering. You know, like that there's always this kind of, yeah, you're right. We are always hurtling through space and we act like we are kind of just like do, it's not a big deal, but something's pushing us and it's not really
Something
us.
is right. It's time. It's that
Time.
goddamn thing called time. Yeah, and he's putting his arms out because he doesn't have control, right? And that is very much so what it feels like to be alive. So your son is
Yeah.
is a
Have you ever done that?
poet.
Have you ever hurt yourself when you're a kid? Like if you ever go down a slide or like a water slide or even like a snow, like if you're on a sled, if your body feels like you're going too fast, you'll just start to like try to use your feet to brake and you might actually like scrape your leg because of it, because you're trying to use your lower extremities as a brake and you're going too fast. Like I feel like I have a vivid memory of that. It's probably because I mentioned earlier, like rolling down a hill, and now I have the whole like rolling down a hill endlessly thing stuck in my mind.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that image too, Brenda. I mean, I love, yeah, how you're talking about, what can be contained, what needs to be contained. But yeah, this idea of control and what's within our control and not within our control. And that seems like something too that poetry just contends with, and can deal with so capably and so palpably. I do want
Or incapably.
Yes,
Which is
or
what it often.
incapably. Exactly, but it's all messy and it's all, it's all in there. I do want to talk to you both a little bit about motherhood, to continue a little bit, about what you were just talking about. And like you were both saying, you're both mothers, and your work and your current books, deals so much with motherhood and with parenting, particularly in these two books, about parenting under duress. In Obit, Victoria, your poems grapple with, losing parents, the loss and fear associated with being parented while also parenting your own children. Brenda, the Octopus Museum deals with some specific fears, some future fears rooted in, environmental destruction, politics. But the overlap in both of your work is so striking that these specific fears are general fears. They're ongoing fears. And I think you both just show so capably in your poems that this is something that that poetry can do so well. I wonder if you could both talk a little bit about this idea of parenting under duress in your work.
Yeah, is there parenting not under duress? It is so hard, and it's so scary, and it never gets unscary. And if it's like I find myself, if I think too much about how scary it is, then it's almost debilitating. And so I just kind of get through the, life one foot in front of the other kind of thing. And I can't quite imagine what it, might be like be Brenda. But I imagine you probably are the same as me. You just put one foot in front of the next and do the best you can. But I think that for me, at least, I feel like having children and being a parent and helping my parents has made me a better writer. And I think it's also made me a better person and a human. And it's also made me not care at all about so many other things, because all the things that I used to care about just don't matter anymore, because I don't have any capacity left to care about those things. And so in that way, I think it's been healthy emotionally, but it's been extremely challenging. And I think the children appear, in both of our poems quite a bit, more so maybe in Brenda's poems. But I think, yeah, I think it's hard not to write about them. I mean, they're around all the time, and it just every second of the day, it's like they're somehow infiltrating your mind in small bits and fragments. Again, to go back to what we were talking about earlier.
They really are everywhere. They're not, you can't get out from under these kids. And sometimes I wonder, like, wait, is it just the pandemic, or is it just that this is all just a total racket, that this whole motherhood parenthood thing is just it's just a racket to get, it's a scam to get women to devote their entire lives to the next generation of people.
Mhm.
But yet I agree with Victoria that it's made me a better person and a better writer, only because it had to be, right? Like, I have them, so it's either they destroy me or I become better for it. Like, there's not really, I mean, I feel sometimes eaten alive by
Mhm.
the kids. And it's not necessarily because I have one child who's disabled. Like, the
Right.
non-disabled one also eats me alive. So I don't know what, I kind of just feel like when it comes to parenting and writing, they're totally incompatible. But then
Mhm.
So Again is like long-term committed, like, romantic love and coexisting under the pandemic, where you're like always around somebody's sneezes and socks and whatnot. Like, that's not romantic. It was never meant to be. It's antithetical. And then I think maybe sometimes just feeling deeply in a fast-paced world is also a conflict.
Mhm.
I don't really know what is normal in any mode at all anymore.
Mhm.
Parenting during a pandemic is extra hard. Being a child of aging parents is also hard. Is it harder than it was without the pandemic? How on earth would we ever know? Will we ever go back to normal? Probably not. I mean, not really. We've all been deformed by this. So we're never
Mhm.
going to have another time when we are parenting or dealing with our folks or dealing with our writing lives without the knowledge of having been deformed and, like, you know, morphed by the pandemic. It's like
Mhm.
we can't go
Mhm.
back. I don't think that is even an answer to anything. Didn't even
Yeah.
answer any
No, I
question
love
at
it.
all.
No, that
I
seems
was
super relevant. So yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
And when you were talking, I was thinking too how it's sometimes I feel like it's a racket, and especially for those of us who have more than one child, or maybe someone who may be single parenting or something. Like, it is unbelievably difficult. And if people were really honest with us, writers, other writers were honest with us early on. I mean, I don't know if you go back and have them, because I mean, there was a period of maybe 10 years that's like an entire black hole for me. I don't remember any of it. I have no idea what I was doing, but I was really, really, really stressed and really busy. And I don't remember reading anything. I feel like I have to catch up now and read all these things that all my friends are referring to now. And it's like, oh, when was I don't know what I was doing then. I mean, it really is gone. And that was my entire 30s gone. And some of my 40s. And but it's like, what do I have to show for it? Well, these two humans. you know? And yeah.
Culturally, that's a huge price for culture to pay to lose out on a decade of Victoria Chang's work.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm
But yeah,
serious.
as a
Like,
proxy for women, sure.
I'm not trying to make it sound ridiculous. I'm trying to say, like, that's a lot. I mean, they say that each kid costs a parent a book. I don't know. That seems low to me.
It seems low, right? Yeah. That is like lowballing. I feel like it's more. And I also think about writing, how the writing may take a different direction, and the interesting directions it may take. But then with every interesting direction, there's the opportunity cost. What wasn't written, or what could have been written, and the path that writers take for X, Y, or Z reasons, but especially for children and child one and then child two. It's like it really does push you over the edge, and I mean, I felt completely identityless for the longest time, and it was emotionally very difficult. But I didn't think about it because they didn't, like, again, if they destroy if you don't survive, they destroy you. And maybe it's simultaneous. They destroy you while you're trying to survive. And so it is not glamorous, and it is not beautiful. And I think that is such a myth, as a writer who has things or people to take care of.
Yeah, and I think you both capture that so well in your work too. I mean, Victoria, you have this line like I said, to love anyone means to admit extinction. Brenda, you say, you never know when you say goodbye if it's the last time. Last time for who, for what? There's so much in your poems about this lack of knowing, about this lack of being able to control. What is happening? What is happening to you, around you? How do you provide for your children? How do they provide for you? I'm really struck, Brenda, with the last poem in your book, which you read at the beginning of this, where the last image is your daughter Simone carrying the family through, and I love that image of, it sort of connotes this burden for her, but also this hope, right, that she's somehow going to rise above the muck, the destruction, and maybe carry everyone through.
Yeah, maybe, but she's also the Asian American daughter that has to carry everyone through anyway. That's sort of the expectation that, like,
right.
Good luck, honey. That's yours now.
The whole world.
To now you. Like, it's just, I think that's another thing to think about too, that, when you are a caretaker, when you're a caregiver, and whether that's, you're in that middle generation, or that was the middle of the sandwich that Victoria is in, and or you're sort of dealing with just the sort of dependents, the kids. It's just sort of strange because, like, we're supposed to keep people safe. Like, that's our job. We're supposed to be writers too, but forget that. Like, that can't happen because your main job is you got to keep people safe, and we can't keep people safe. Not in this moment. We've known throughout the last regime's development that people were not safe, like basically not safe, and with COVID even more so. This idea of not being safe even in your own breathing space, outside, inside, nowhere. But this violence against Asian Americans, and especially Asian American elders, like this thing that's just sort of been simmering for so long, that we've all known has existed for a long time, is now like forefront. And it just feels even more that we can be Asian American daughters who are tasked with keeping everything safe and keeping everyone running and everyone healthy. And that's just we can't do it alone. We can't do it. It's tremendously disempowering to feel like this is not, I'm on the phone, maybe telling my mom, I don't think you should go to Costco, and telling my sister, don't let mom go to Costco by herself. And not because she's ill or injured, but because it's just not safe because of other people. It's just another way of looking at this whole conundrum, because all the pieces of identity, there's so many different pieces of identity that make us. And that one's been on my mind so much. I know it has been on your mind too, Victoria. It's like, it's just been devastating.
It's so devastating. And you feel so helpless. And then you feel like, I just keep thinking, we're back here again, and where did my life go, where we have to go back to where I was when I was a kid. And it feels like progress hasn't been made. And that to me has been the most disappointing thing, to have to explain to my children these kinds of things that happen, and that happened when I was younger, a child. And it just doesn't feel right. And it's not just Asian Americans, it's everyone. And that's it kind of, when I start thinking about that, I think, wow, I think of Yeats and all the cycles, right? And I just can't, I just don't have a lot of hope left. But then I think, well, hope is sort of maybe overrated anyway. So maybe we just do these cycle things, and that is what we do. And we do the best that we can to combat those destructive human tendencies, the missing, the amnesia, that we all seem to experience, because again, we are alive for such a short period of time that maybe that's the problem. So if we can figure out scientifically how to make us live for 200 years, maybe there could be some learning that finally does actually happen.
Thank you both so much. I wish we could talk for 6 more hours, but unfortunately, we'll have to bring things to a close. But I am just so thankful for both of you. Thank you so much, Victoria and Brenda, for your work and for this really generous conversation. And thanks to our audience for joining us as well. Take care.
Thank you. It was nice chatting with you both.
Yes.
Thank you, Victoria and Brenda, for that amazing conversation. And Anne, thanks for keeping things on track, as well as giving both our poets room to explore. Speaking of exploring, the Library of Congress has a wealth of resources for you poetry lovers to check out. We are home to the U.S. Poet Laureate, after all. Just go to loc.gov/poetry to learn more about our current Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo, and discover webcasts and audio recordings featuring your favorite poets. If you want to hear or see a poet you love, our website's a great place to start. Just as the Library of Congress, the world's largest library, is the perfect place to explore any passion or interest you have. Start your library journey today at loc.gov.